Act 1 ends on August 22nd. Let's give you some tips to dominate this next act. These are the 4 most important tips analyzing players from every single rank. First off, crosshair with intent. Basically, peeking what you want to peek and only that. The number 1 mistake that I see when players are swinging around a corner is they don't have their crosshair where enemies are most likely to be holding, whether it's by a box or in a corner, and they adjust after they swing out and peek the angle. If the enemy is opping, for instance, and your crosshair isn't perfectly on point when you swing around that corner, you're gonna die very, very quickly. And the best way to not only do this properly, but practice this is pinging on the map the specific point you want to actually challenge with your crosshair. This allows you to swing around the corner with your crosshair perfectly on the angle that you want to directly challenge, making it a lot more consistent, and eventually you're gonna get good at this without having to ping. You're not always gonna have the luxury to be able to ping on the map. For instance, if you're popping out of a smoke, you don't wanna just have your crosshair somewhere random. You wanna have it very intentionally towards the spaces that enemies are likely to be, either by prior information or by powerful position, because it's a very commonly held place that people typically hold, and that's an area that you want to challenge and clear before you move on. The next thing is map to body awareness. You will completely lose yourself in Valorant. Whether you get blinded, paranoid, you're smoked off, whatever the case may be, you will often completely lose track of your surroundings, yourself, where you're looking, where your team is, and this more than likely will get you killed. Because let's say that you are blinded by a paranoia. If you knew exactly how to run away and get behind cover, even while blind, you would be able to get out of the LOS of enemies. But if you lose yourself, find yourself running into a wall, or maybe you get unblinded but you're facing the wrong damn direction, you're gonna die and get no value. This means that you need to be cognizant of where you're looking and where you are on the map, even if you lose your sight and lose your ability to see the map. You should be able to be blinded and still navigate exactly where you want to go based on where you were before. And this allows you to run away from danger, set up a potential play, and just be more survivable altogether. Now, the best way to practice this is 1, just practice moving around the map. I highly suggest just doing this in DM. Practice moving around, practice learning the intricacies of the map, little boxes here and there, things you can jump on. All of that is gonna matter even more so when you can't see it. And the second part of this is give yourself little practice drills. You could easily do this by going into a custom, closing your eyes, and walking from one location to the next and see how close you get. The farther you can go without any map knowledge, the better your map understanding is, the better you can move around the map, and the less it matters that you're blinded for a couple of seconds, because you could easily get yourself to safety or in a better position that doesn't peek where the enemies directly are. The next tip is about positioning. What makes a position weak or strong? Well, the biggest question you need to ask yourself is, can I run away if my play goes wrong? For instance, if you're in a location and you take a couple of shots and completely whiff, if you're out in the middle of the open with no natural cover, you're going to die because an enemy could just shoot you right back. But if you're behind a cover, sure, you give away your location, but then you can back up and run away and enemies can't easily kill you. This means that cover that can't be wall banged is also more powerful than cover that can be. In addition to this, some characters are stronger or weaker depending on what characters the enemies have. If you're pushing down a long sightline with no cover, you can do that as 2, maybe 3 people potentially, but you are very vulnerable to one specific type of ability, flashes. Now you could circumvent that by having someone play anti-flash, for instance, but also if the enemy have no flashes on their team, realize that you can't get punished very easily for this type of position. And this is true for a number of different abilities. The last tip I'll give you about positioning is about expectation. The less an enemy expects a position, the more powerful it becomes. You know this on a subconscious level when you push forward on defense, on bind, and you're tucked into a cubby, or you are in a very tucked in location on the flank and enemies rotate back into you and you get to kill them all for free because they don't clear you. Understand that there are certain positions where if an enemy expects you there, it's very weak. You don't have any exit options and they can kill you almost basically for free. But if enemies don't expect you there, it doesn't matter all those other weaknesses. So what you ultimately have to ask yourself when you play these positions is, what is the likelihood I get spotted out here? What is the expectation of my enemies based on their past actions? And what abilities do I have to think about potentially giving away my position? That will all build you a certain expectation level, and that risk versus reward is something you can take into the plays you make to get some extra value or play in a position you otherwise wouldn't play. Last up is a crash course on map control. I'm gonna be doing a VOD review of pros on this in the future if you want more in-depth analysis, but here's the common mistakes that everyone is making. First one is, everyone is 5-man pushing one choke. This is typically really bad because it gives away almost the entire map of map control. And if enemies can punish this with stall utility, the ability to rotate fast, flank, or lurk, all of a sudden, you are in a situation where there are 3 or 4 people there, you are stalled and can't push out, and then you have to rotate off. But guess what? You gave away all of the map control. Nowhere else on the map do you know where enemies are. And how can an enemy use that to punish you? Well, they can fill the space that you would have to rotate back into. Like, imagine you're trying to 5-man A main on a sense and you get stalled out, right? So you want to rotate back, but now there's an enemy lurking CT, there's an enemy that is hidden sub Rosa, and if y'all try to take back mid control, you're gonna get 2 people killed. You try to go CT, you're gonna get at least 1 person killed, and the enemy's gonna know exactly where you're going, so they're gonna be able to rotate and meet you anyways. And let's also just talk about the execute onto a site. If you had more control, let's say of tree room, it's so much easier for your team to take site control because now your team doesn't have to worry about one whole direction and they can focus on clearing the entire point. To give you a more exact example, let's take one of the biggest mistakes that players make in ranked, which is on bind A, where no one tries to take showers. If you are playing on that map and you're trying to hit A and you don't fight for showers control, you make it incredibly difficult for your team to get the spike down or play post plant. You gotta understand that, let's say you push onto point and you smoke differently because you have to if you don't have showers, right? You smoke across the point, you get the spike down, but the enemy is still playing in showers. So now in the retake, when the smokes fall, you have to deal with potential presence everywhere, including a flank from showers. You have effectively taken no map control and enemies don't even have to worry about that whole side of the map. They know that you are either A main or U-Haul, and they can do wide swings out in the middle of the site because they are not afraid of showers, and they also have showers to retreat back to. So you make it harder to execute and get the plant down, and simultaneously harder to defend because you didn't get any of the space that you needed to properly fight the point. And sure, let's say you do occupy showers and enemies come in during the retake and come fight you. That requires time, utility, effort by the enemy, and that is all important in a post-plant situation. Map control and positioning are pretty complex topics, so I can't break it all down in this video, but I'll be sure to do it in the future VODs. But go check out the GameLeap website down below. Tips, tricks, guides, and advanced concepts over any of this. If you want to improve very quickly, you gotta go check it out right now down below.